Like the thinking that you are actually accumulating too much debt could actually be giving you sleeplessness, so you end up trying to live within your means kind of thing. Then again, and they think it's irrational. You understand? Because obviously in Western society it's about credit facility. So whenever it's the opposite, it becomes irrational. In our case, the credit one becomes irrational. Because the rational is to have your own card and spend it. Alright. So the next one is consumers use overdraft, line of credit on check account despite a large savings account balance. Okay, so this gentleman has fat savings, account with more money in it, yet he wants to spend overdraft. What's the sense in that?
Well, I don't know, with the overdraft, you have the money, for instance, you have your money in fixed deposit.
Yeah.
You have 100,000 in fixed deposit. And you tell the bank that you want an overdraft facility. And we're going to give you 95% of the 100,000.
Yeah.
Now what that means is that we're calculating the interest on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Until you use the money, no interest is accumulated.
That's right.
Now we're looking at a company which does a lot of very active transaction in the sense that if I use the money today, I might as well get the money today.
Yeah.
So in essence, I've not used the money because I'll put it back.
Yeah.
It favors such people
than
somebody whose business is not really active.
Yeah. But the scenario that the person is using the money, so he enters into the overdraft, and that's what it says that some customers now would rather prefer using the overdraft and then they will have money stashed in their savings account. It's irrational. And the question is, why would they do that?
And you're not using the money all the time. So.
You see, when the economy is not predicted, it's irrational, like our economy. You don't know when things can get worse. And people don't want to be kind of destabilized in terms of their family finances and things like that. So they rather want to fall on, the bank's facility. Because, to be frank with you, when you owe the bank, you rather want to owe the bank than not to have money for your family. Alright? So they rather want to keep the savings in case of any mishaps that they can use to run the business of their home and rather owe the bank. So they use it as a safety measure to protect them. So if consumers have such behaviors, or are actually exhibiting such behaviors, then of course you would have to know how to deal with them. In terms of your mechanisms to safeguard, your own side of the deal. And then again, you can also sell overdraft facilities and make sure that you have hefty fees on it, because they're using you to protect their interest. So you've got to also work out your interest so that you also gain more from it. All right. So that's what we're saying. Now, underinvestment into retirement funds. Why are people underinvesting into retirement funds? Irrational behavior. You would think that people would rather invest in their. Why are they, underinvested? Another consumer behavior, irrational. At a point, people don't see the need to put the money aside because they think that they can get more value. They think that they can get more value. So they'll be using the money to do things, not necessarily putting it away. Because sometimes, the value which is delayed is actually discounted. You understand? And I think recently there was a suggestion by General Mosquito that we should go into the Petroleum Investment Fund. Who had it? And he mounted that argument. That the country, the Heritage Fund, he mounted that argument. That the country needs money now to do certain infrastructure development. And you said the fund has to be there for 20, 30 years. What's the point? That's the thing. It's irrational. But there's a reason behind it. That if you're able to spend it now to get the infrastructure, you are able to get more value for posterity. It makes sense. But the act itself is irrational. You get it? So if consumers display such behavior as a business, you have to buy into it and then make sure that you create value, win-win value for them. Maybe yes, you encourage them to spend it in a certain way that could actually yield value for their retirement. So is there any financial instrument that you can suggest? Or is there any other use that you can actually suggest for them to get that value that they're looking for? So these are some of the things that you've got to be thinking about, in terms of the consumer behavior. Again, credit card companies' growing use of penalty fees rather than interest charges is irrational. Why? And why would you think that they rather want to use penalty fees rather than interest charges as a source of revenue? You see, if the consumer gets the card and then they spend, obviously you charge them rate on what they have spent. If you charge the consumer exorbitant fees, they get angry, they will stop using the card. So you rather want to give them loan, and once they have abused the card, you slap them. They will see it as fair. Oh, this one is because I've spent it. So they see fairness in it. But if you slap them with a hefty fines in terms of interest rate, they won't come back. What? 50% interest rate, I'm not coming back. They won't come back. So keep it as low as possible. And once they abuse the card or they spend or they default in payment, maybe they miss one payment, every month they have to pay. So he misses the payment, then you slap him with 40 pounds. Or 40 guys. And they were doing that until the ombudsman came to slash the payment. Those days, if you miss your payment, they slap you like 40 pounds. Penalty. Then they had to come in to slash it to somewhere 20 or 15. And along the line, some of them, even if you call them to say you haven't defaulted for the past 6 months, they'll waive it for you. It makes sense in that way. So you have to find a way to make sure you don't anger the customer, but you still get value. You get a point? Yeah. I don't know yet.
What about those non-bank financial institutions who will tell you that I'll give you an interest rate of 80%? And then,
On your investment?
yes, on your investment.
80%.
And people would actually go in and purchase.
Yeah.
We call that rush.
No, I won't say the interest rate.
80%.
Yes.
Yeah, and people will go in.
Yes.
We'll come to that. Yeah, and they will believe this.
This
It's
US
crash,
group of
yes.
Company.
I was amazed when I heard some of the stories that they are actually it's not a financial company.
Yeah, it's a tilapia thing,
It's
isn't it?
like and apparently the date was that it's a 1 year fixed investment.
Yeah.
And then they are giving you 100% of it. And then on radio, someone said they said to her that she was going to get 100%. And I was so surprised. I mean, people believed it.
Yes.
They didn't even go and look at where the farms were.
Yeah.
And
you
people
see,
are paying, people invested 15,000, people invested 10,000.
yeah. And you can understand why. Because when it comes to financial instruments, there's imbalance. Knowledge asymmetry. This guy can sit in front of it and will show you evidence.
Yes.
And will show you why he thinks.
I didn't invest, but I went to training where we did fish farming training, certificate, we went to the farms and how to. But after looking at all that goes in, it wasn't possible for them to give you that.
But you have the expertise to see inside, see through it. The majority of customers, and I'm sure, I may pick it up from logic perspective, but not necessarily as a financial expert view. You understand? And question it. There are many people who can't see through it. Because whenever somebody is a financial expert, there's a delusional kind of, you respect that person as normal.
Yeah.
Just like you do for doctors and professors and medical doctors. As soon as the person has a particular status attached to it, you invest trust. Just like you stop the taxi driver. Why do you stop the taxi driver and you jump in it?
Because they know everywhere.
You've invested trust in the person. As soon as you stop the car, he's driving, he's a taxi driver. So you assume that he's a good driver.
It's a fallacy.
You get it? Just like your son or your daughter will think that you're a Superman. So naturally as human beings, yes, your son or your daughter thinks that that the father can do anything. Hey, as for my daddy, he will beat you. You understand? There is some level of trust for experts' opinions and for some, not some, but professionals. All right. So immediately you go to the taxi rank or you go by the road, you just stop the taxi, thinking that it will take you safely to the whatever destination, only to find yourself maybe chucked up in somewhere. All right. That's how it is. So it makes it difficult, for consumers to actually understand some of these things and not to believe in it. Like you're saying, the guy will take you through sequences and justify rationally everything. Immediately you buy into it and you release the money without knowing. You go to a hospital, and one of my friends is a surgeon in the UK. He tells me that, there are times when customers, patients come, they tell you that they are sick, but you can check that, you can tell that they are not. But they believe that they are not well. So they say they have something out there. Yeah. Yeah. They will give you something that as though it's like pills or whatever. Say, but natural fact is sugar. That's sugar. You take it and the next time you tell us, oh, I'm feeling better. It's working.
Even our elderly folks.
That's right.
So when you go to hospital, you come out, the first question will ask you, oh, were you injected? If you said no, then they are.
That's right. You see. Yeah. So there are certain things, psychologically that plays out on our mind as consumers. And these experts are able to go scot-free with it, like financial experts and not only financial experts, but other experts, so-called. You get it? So that's the reason why people can invest that amount and believe that they will get 80% out of it.
Yeah. Well, I think that behavior is rational. When they're questioning, it's rational for them to think based on interest rates. They will go in for it.
Yeah.
Unlike the idea with the debit card and the credit card, where to the financial person it makes sense for you to know that money you have today is definitely worth more than the same money tomorrow. So it will be best to have use credit to purchase than wait till you get the money and then do the purchase.
That's right.
That one is irrational.
I also think it's irrational because how on earth are you going to get 80% interest?
Yeah, so then we can look at.
What are you doing?
So we can look at the relativity.
The question on how.
Yeah, we can look at the relativity.
But your response, their rate.
So for you like this, it will be irrational, especially someone of your caliber, who works in maybe a financial institution and things like that, and you still can invest. And then somebody says, really? Were you thinking? So it becomes irrational. So that's the thing. It could be based on a particular context. Okay, so all steps in the decision process need recognition to post-purchase evaluation do take place. That's rational. And consumers are well informed about product attribute and competitive offers. Well, consumers undertake sufficient information. So all these are rational. We're thinking, if the customer does that, you're talking about a rational consumer. So when you're approaching a rational consumer, then you know where you have to put your information. How do you do the evaluation, post-purchase evaluation? How do you actually make sure that you appeal to the senses of this consumer? Again, consumer assessment of risk reflects true probabilities of events and things. So we're saying that all these are rational behaviors. Insurance premium is equal to probability times claim, of course. So all that, $1 is $1, regardless of where you get it from. So, sorry. So, again, sources of the heuristics, like the experiences, Well, there's limitations in human cognitive circuitry. That's what we're saying that. Human beings, we are limited in how many, retention especially. How many things can we retain in our minds? Heuristics. That's like learning process. How do we come to know? So you have emotions, insufficient consumer knowledge. All these will come to know something because from your emotions you come to realize, or you can actually realize something through emotions. And we know that mental budgeting of funds, for example, that people immediately tell them something, they will calculate in their minds. All right, and then think about whether really is the case or not the case. They do some evaluation too. And then you have asymmetric discounting, the attraction effect, anchoring adjustment. We'll go through one by one. quickly. So effect of limitations in human cognitive circuitry. So we're saying that some of these things are consumer behavior, because we are limited in our retention. I mean, imagine you being put forward 7 benefits. 7 products. Oh, wait, yes. By the time you get to the 3rd one, you forgot the first one. Can you please go back? What's my parents? So, yeah, by the time you get to the 7th, you forgot the 6th. You get it? So, it is difficult for human beings to retain beyond 3. So, does that make it useful for you to go to the consumer with so many options? Choice, yes, is good, but do you necessarily have to offer so many choices? You get the person confused. So you've got to make sure that you limit it to a point where the consumer can retain and then choose. But you don't just say, oh, option 1, and say option 2, and say up to option 7. Too much. Alright. So we say the magical numbers of consumers cannot store more than 7 items in short-term memory. As a result, difficulty in conducting mental arithmetics and difficulty in remembering numbers. Example, swim laps. I mean, how many laps has somebody swum? Kind of over and over. That's just an example. But what we are saying is that you don't have to make choice abundantly available. Too much choice. You can't get the sale. Difficulty in appreciating interactions among product attributes. High monthly payment times number of payments. Sometimes people miss it. How many times have I paid? You think that the person should be in the know. And most of the times, some financial institutions actually cheat customers based on that. Because the system miscounts. The person must be paying. And then there's a system issue. And then you go back to it, oh, we share match. It makes it difficult for the customer to say, did I pay or didn't I pay? Yes, this afternoon, I had a call. These paying collectors. The guy said, I traveled to UK and said, oh, I've not paid since it. I said, I don't really remember that I've been paid. But I don't have the receipt. And I was trying to track it in my memory. That's okay, don't worry. How much is it? I'll pay it anyway. But if we have the capacity to remember, you will definitely be able to remember, but we don't have it. Sometimes work pressures and other things wouldn't even allow you to track it, especially when the thing is lowly involved. It's not that highly involved purchase. That's even when you lose the track. Alright. So yeah, we factor all those things in our strategy, in selling and in trying to service our customers. You've got to think about those things. So these are all some of the factors that we can think about. Let's run through this one. So we talk about asymmetric discounting. Now, asymmetric discounting is saying that delayed versus accelerated gains. We're saying that whenever there is a benefit that is delayed or benefit that is to be gained earlier, depending on the values of them, we are likely to choose one over the other. Alright, so for example, scenario 1, an apple in a year. The same scenario 1B, it says 2 apples in a year and a week. Which one will you go for? Or which one do you think the customer will go for? So you're telling the customer that in a year, or 2 apples in a year and a week. Scenario 1, which one? An apple in a year, 2 apples in a year and a week. Let me give you a clue. Look at the differentials. One is a year and a week.
No, but the person will go in for the A.
For the A.
It may happen that after the year, that week something happens. You will not live to collect it.
Yeah.
What does
Just 1 week in addition to the
Then you get 2. Yeah.
About 7 days.
You see, but look at the 2 scenarios. The scenario 2 says an apple today, 2 apples a week from now. If you look at the differential between the 2 scenarios, right? This one is almost about what? 8 days, isn't it? Right, it's almost about what? Sorry, 6 days or something. This one is a year and then just a week. So you see that the differentials will tell you where the person is going to choose. All right, you look at the differentials and see whether the person is going to. It says most people choose option B in scenario 1, but choose option 2 in scenario 2. Option A in scenario 2. What has changed? You know. So these are some of the things that you do in selling. You know, giving the customer options. And it is a strategy for people to do what? To get customers to choose a particular one that gives them more value. Alright? So the company is considering that, how do I get more value from this sale? And they can use these strategies to get more value from customers. Because if you have to give the customer, let's say, 2 apples in a year, alright? A year and a week, and then an apple in a year. Should a person choose this one, he's lost this one. The first.
Yeah.
And you, the company, gains. Yeah. Because if you look at the interest rate, because we're looking at financial products, you know, the changes may not necessarily be that much. 1 week may not necessarily be that much in terms of interest rates and those, taking into consideration those factors. So the consumer stands to gain in B than A. But if the consumer chooses A, the company stands to gain. Or the financial institution may stand to gain it now. Or it could be
because I'm just looking at the second option lags by a week.
Yeah.
And if it's where financial instruments, we're looking at after a week of loss in quality, so far as money is concerned.
Yeah.
And I think scenario A and scenario 2 are the same, except it's just showing a week difference.
Yeah.
So the customer tends to gain if the person gets it earlier than later.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's see another one. Asymmetric discounting and tax returns. So, good news. The company sent you this letter. Hooray. Good news. You have 2,500 tax refund this year. You should receive it in about 6 weeks. But we can pay you 2,400 cash for it now if you want. Remember what we are doing here? We are looking at how do you strategize to sell to the consumer. Alright, based on this consumer behavior. Irrational, rational kind of calculation. You know. Do you think the customer will go for it? Let's look at the implied discount rate, 36%. You see? So these are some of the things that you have to take into consideration when you're selling financial products to consumers. How do you get them excited? You know, you've got to word it in a way that it offers value to them. But in actual fact, the value you also get it. You don't have to make it transparent sometimes. Well, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be transparent, but you have to make sure that you're presenting a win-win scenario. You know, but you also know that you're getting it. Again, asymmetric discounting, the reason behind it. Economic theory states that for a specific time or for a specified time frame, the discount rate applied to each payment must be constant. Yet in practice, consumers use very high discount rates, you know, for immediate events and very low discount rates for very distant events. All right. Whenever the event is so distant, we tend to discount it more. And that is so much applicable in insurance. You know, when the value is so distant, people don't feel attracted to like what do you call funeral policy and pensions. Exactly, pensions and things. Why do I go to buy funeral policy? You know, so people tend to discount it. You know, so you've got to know this consumer behavior and find out how do you tailor it in your approach, in your sales approach, in your marketing approach to make sure that you get that. High discount rates are used for smaller amounts. Primary reason: lack of self-control and poor willpower. As consumers, we always lack that. Again, these are some of the rationality, typical consumer and the rational consumer kind of diagram. The value here, timeline here. So as time goes, the value drops for this typical consumer. For rational consumer, there is a flat, constant. So we've got to understand some of these things so that we can tailor our communications, our products and services better to consumers. Who uses or suffers from asymmetric discounts? Purchase of energy savings appliances is undervalued by consumers. Is that true? Purchase of energy saving appliances. It will save them money. But you know that these machines or these electrical appliances, the initial upfront price is high. But the fact that it will save them money is not attractive. What is actually making them make a decision is the price. You know, most individuals undersave for retirement. We discussed that. The average customer has approximately 10,000 of revolving credit and fixed payment loans, including mortgage obligations, swelling up, you know, because they want immediate benefits. They end up having a long-term problems. You know. Okay, attraction effect. The insurance broker presents you with two different auto insurance policies provided by two well-known insurance companies. So you're doing your job here. Alright, so let's see. Policy A, price, 1,275. Policy B, 1,569. Liability coverage, 150, 200,000. So, the attraction effect continues. The insurance broker presents you with the three different auto insurance policies provided by three well-known insurance companies. So, he's introduced another. Look at the policy C, 1,725. Policy D, 1,275. Policy E, 1,569. Look at that. 160, 150, 200. Alright? If you look at this, there seems to be similarity. He's playing games with you now. And if you look at them and look at the coverage, alright, what's the difference? Just about 100, you know. And then you have the differentials between this and that.
The coverage?
Yes.
10,000.
10,000, yeah. And then between the premium is what? 500. Alright. So sometimes what we're saying is that they will introduce certain kind of similar type of policies.
But they're going for E.
E. Yeah. So 1,569, you get 200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know. But you see, the understanding is.
In the real world,
Yeah.
the liability coverage will be constant.
Mm-hmm.
So what will be different is the price variation from
There won't be an attraction.
the attraction is we are looking for the best price for you.
Mm-hmm.
So the coverage we are looking at is say 200,000. So 200,000 is constant from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
But then the company we are looking at is from company A to E.
So their policies are from the same company.
The company is a liability policy. And the sum or the limit of liability is 200,000. So that runs through all.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the prices, that's when you have variety. Some will be low, some will be high, depending on what the company wants to give you. Some will give you coverage plus something else. To extend to certain geographical areas, some will limit you. So
but it will still be corresponding to the price.
200,000.
Yeah, so that's the attraction.
Exactly. So your attraction goes with the pricing.
Yeah.
For me, it'll go with the coverage.
Yeah.
Because then I'm looking at the sum assured.
Yes.
And based on that, I'm looking at how much I want to pay for every premium.
Exactly. So your attraction,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe I'm not getting you well, but I think your attraction should be a price.
What I'm
So-
saying is, if the coverage is the same,
Yes.
there will be no attraction with the price.
What's the liability coverage?
Yes, unless they state
What
the
they
value
pay
of the other things.
At the end of the
That would give me a
when they
reason to
pay you,
choose.
they pay you when there's a claim. Yeah. So you see, because he's a financial expert, you know, he can tell you perhaps his attraction point from here. But most customers, because the financial instrument is so complex, if the broker introduces same policies from 2 or 3 different providers, the assumption is that that's the best one. Are you getting me? If the broker tells the person hasn't got understanding of some of these things and they introduce maybe 2 or 3 policies that are similar, the assumption is that, oh, I think because they are recurring, you think that it's like, yes, you're not sure of the answer, you see some like, so repeated as that they say, let me go further because there's a similarity. You get it? That's the assumption. So they play with, some of these things, just for consumers to have a buying, but not necessarily that it's giving them the best one. I think that's what is actually plotted here. So now affordability and then the policy coverage. You see. All right, let's see another one. Okay, let's look at the definition. So the attractiveness of an option increases when new options dominated by that option are introduced to a set of choices you have. So the person looks at it and is looking at a particular option that is repeated several times and he thinks, oh, maybe that's the best one. So it would take perhaps the broker and how and the extent of which you believe in the broker and the broker prepared to give you an honest opinion to make you choose the right one. Otherwise, if we don't want to make quick sales on you and then make more value, they will introduce certain things in it just to confuse you to choose the one that can offer them more value. You get it? So, agent broker showing some standard options to prospective buyers with the intention to bias their choices. Anyway, that could be punishable by law because then you may be misleading the consumer. Anchoring. Another kind of strategy that we use as financial expert or financial market expert to get buy-in from customers.
Can we get a real life example of agents, brokers using some standard options?
Yeah. Explain this to us, real life example.
For instance, you buy a comprehensive insurance policy for your car. And then I bring you quotations from, say, 3 companies, knowing very well that certain companies, when it comes to claims payments, will not honor. In addition to that, somebody may be giving you a premium as low as something that your budget will be able to consider. But then there will be certain hidden conditions like those conditions could be what we call excesses on the policy. By reducing your premium, you're actually increasing your excess. So that in the event of a claim, instead of them paying you maybe 100%, they are going to deduct that excess from it. And so you may have paid thinking that you have 100% coverage, and then when it comes...
So they backloaded the policy as opposed to front loading it. Because the front loading has a frontal cost, very high frontal cost, that when there's an issue, you barely pay anything. And they know that that could actually make you not interested. So they will push that cost back. And you only hope and pray that nothing happens to you until the end of the policy. Because if the excess is huge and something happens, boom, you have to, fund it. So these are some of the things that you've got to know, but consumers don't know. Again, that asymmetric, information, that imbalance. Alright. And I'm sure it's the same as some of these investment products. Other investment products that consumers don't know, then the bankers have to tell them and it becomes an issue.
I went to the bank, I needed money and then I wanted an overdraft. And then the guy said he was giving me express or excess. Something that I could just access within a short time. I said, okay. But then he didn't tell me that we were going to charge so much. To me, I was told from the front desk that this is how much to charge for overdraft, and I agreed. And so I went upstairs to see the next person who was going to actually work on it. So when I went to go, since you are, a regular customer here, just sign and then we'll do the rest for you. And before I could say Jack,
just sign here.
Because they know I'm somebody who doesn't have time. I'm always in the hurry to do the next thing. So they have my details, everything is there. Just sign and then we'll do everything for you. So they call you and tell you the money is in your account. So just bring your check, sign it, and then you have it. The next moment, the rate that has actually been charged is far over and above what was, I was told.
So you just sign your life away. So most consumers evaluate hotel leases by simply looking at the monthly payment, without knowing that maybe the frequency is high, again, the excess thing that we talked about. So they can tell you that, oh, it's just three Ghana cedis. Before you realize, 3 Ghana cedis every week. Yeah. Oh, Charlie, this one is cheap for 3 Ghana. Before you realize, it's 3 Ghana cedis a week. Multiply by 4 weeks and it's, almost about what?
Like when you go for a facility from them, instead of telling me the actual rate they are charging, for instance, they are charging you 48%, they'll tell you it's 4% for a period of 6 months. But they don't tell you it's 4% cumulative.
Yeah.
So by the time you realize you are paying so much.
That's right.
Meanwhile, in front of the person, you tell you, okay, if you are taking 10,000, you are charging 4%. 4% is on the total of the 10,000. So you know that you are paying that 1 bit out of the 6 months cumulative payment.
Yeah.
So when you start the payment, that's when you realize how much you actually pay.
Yeah. That's right. Okay.
But stuff like that's open for litigation. That's how you mentioned.
That's right. It could be penalty.
Yeah, it could be analyzed.
So
once you do those things, and
yeah, what I'm saying is at the point of sale, that's how they are trained to sell. They are trained to coin their statements to you such that you believe that what you actually paid at the end of the period is that first amount. But then when the documents come in and sign, if you are not somebody like the elite, you will sign and before you realize so much is getting
and the issue is that when it comes to financial services, the small print is many. And people don't have time.
For instance, with Standard Chartered Bank, if you let a customer sign on for an investment, before we debit the customer's account, we'll call the customer. I will ask you all the things that you are supposed to know. If you miss out one, the salesperson would have to be penalized for that.
But if it's not, but you know that it may not necessarily be the salesperson's problem, like we said, limitation.
Yes, but either way, that's how it's taken.
So how do you clarify? Do you ask the person, what do you know, or you mention it and the person
you make copies of all the person's application.
Yeah.
And then make exigent, make clear whatever the prices are. If it's interest, let the person know it clearly that this is an interest on what you're doing.
So you mention it to the person confirms.
Yes. If it's a mutual fund, let the person know that, listen, your capital is not protected. I'm making that very clear to you because you'll be asked so that you don't go with the idea that it will go through and the least thing you can lose is just your interest. You can lose your whole money. Exactly. Okay. The person says he wasn't told that, he won't go.
Okay, then that's right. That makes sense. That's right. Okay.
But so that's what they are saying.
Yes, I did.
Person like, let's say Data Bank.
Yeah.
When they started, there was so much information that after when this place, when you put your money here, in the next 5 years, it grows to.
Yeah, it happened to me.
So I put my money there and I waited for 5 years, increasing, and after 5 years, when I realized that it wasn't going anywhere, come on, I just recruit. But then they were still selling the M fund and telling us that one is a mutual fund that yields more, like you are saying.
Yeah.
But I wasn't told that money is not protected. So if I have heard that from the beginning, I would try it.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so we're saying that anchoring, investors use the purchase price of the stock price, that's price they had paid to assess their sell decisions. Investors revisit the price of a sold stock after they've sold it to evaluate their own decisions. Anchoring. People use the initial as the base to make their decisions.
Yeah.
Alright. So just like you're saying, sometimes for you to get the customer buying, you want to introduce to them the first one that is of maybe of value and of tantalizing nature before you, knowing that they would actually anchor any decision on the first. Alright? So most consumers evaluate, we'll talk about it. Let's see. Example, most popular portfolio mix for university professors' retirement plans is 50 bonds, 50 stock. Studies show that most professors do not change this mix even as they age and their life circumstances change. Why? Because they've anchored, their investment portfolio based on this particular mix. Alright, so even if there's changes in the market, that could even offer more value in this. They're stuck onto that one. To evaluate an offer, consumers use a reference point to form an initial judgment. Alright? And then adjust the judgment based on additional pieces of information. So if you know that these are kind of a consumer behavior, you always want to make sure that you have the juicy part that can have them the back end. And then you can adjust the value. So you go for policy, they tell you that they will start to tell you, oh, when you add this onto it, there's another 2 Ghana cedis. Take it. Then you take it. So they start adjusting it. Alright? Because the adjustment doesn't add any effect to it. The first part is the only thing that they think about, the consumer think about. So the juicy of the policy is the first one that you told them. The other bit that adds gradually, they don't really see it. Alright. So typically the initial reference point dominates and the subsequent adjustment is insufficient. So you see a whole lot of policies that the first one they tell you, then later, oh, but there's an extra 2 Ghana, oh, there's an extra 3 Ghana. Before you realize, especially when it comes to insurance, they will tell you, oh, legal fees, do you want the legal fees added? Oh, legal fees will do this, they will take. Oh, Ketsi car.